What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And today we are here with Christian Espinosa, the CEO of Alpine Security, and he's also the author of The Smartest Person in the Room, which I thought was really a funny title. And I just have to kind of share a joke here with all of you. This is the first time in forever that I've had to restart the intro. So curse you, pneumonia, first off, but I'm excited to be here with everybody, and especially here with Christian today to really talk about taking, I would say, honestly, the topic is about taking a boring industry where people devalue your soft skills and then flipping it on its head. So Christian, first off, say what's up to everybody and we'll delve in.
Hey everyone, thanks for the intro, Josh. I'm glad you're recovering from your pneumonia. Sounds like you're almost over it.
Trying to, and I debated about just continuing on, but I'm gonna hack out a long while we're here. So, well, Christian, we had a good conversation before this interview, and I want to delve into a couple specific topics with you. We initially thought about going into the cybersecurity side, but I really feel like your true area of expertise is helping shift industries, right? And you're talking about taking an industry that's very hard to work with because they only value the hard skills, and you're saying, hey, let's flip it on its head and work with the soft skills. So walk us through a little bit of what you're teaching in The Smartest Person in the Room.
In my industry and in any technical industry, as you mentioned, Josh, there's a valuation of technical skills at the cost of soft skills. It's almost like there's this belief that if you have a high IQ, you can't have a high EQ. It's like they're mutually exclusive, this belief. So when I had my business, I owned a cybersecurity business. I just sold it in December. I ran into a lot of issues, and necessity drove me to address some of these issues because I funded the business, I founded the business. So I had to fix stuff or I'd like go bankrupt basically. So there's the necessity there. So I spent about 5 years really fixing and resolving some of the issues with my team's EQ skills. And ultimately, I culminated that into 7 steps, which I have in the book. And I put those steps in order. I call it the secure methodology because a lot of the issues in my industry, and I think in humans in general, stem from insecurities. So the concept is if you apply these 7 steps, you'll become more secure with yourself. And if your inner world is more secure, then the outer world can be more secure as well, because you're not going to be posturing and intellectual bullying and doing all, your ego will be dissolved a little bit. So the 7 steps, and these are really like personal development steps. I put these in order. They need to go in order, but you can really look at any of them individually. And I'll just kind of tell you the steps, and we can talk more detail if you want. The first one is awareness. So having self-awareness, awareness of others. Second one is mindset. So I talk about a fixed versus a growth mindset. The third one is acknowledgement. So, you need to acknowledge yourself before you can acknowledge other people. The fourth one is communication. In my industry, there's a lot of talking over people's head, and I'm a proponent of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And one of the presuppositions in there is that the meaning of communication is the response you get. So if somebody's not understanding you, it's on you to take ownership and change your communication style. The fifth one is monotasking. So monotasking is just doing one thing at a time. It's the antithesis of multitasking. And then I've got the 6th step is empathy. So I talk about cognitive versus effective empathy. And then step 7 is Kaizen, which is constant and never-ending improvement. So that's my secure methodology, and that's what I came up with to address some of the challenges I was facing in my industry.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, honestly, I love frameworks first off. So it's cool that you've built this framework out to help people with that. So, and I want to kind of go back in history a little bit here and talk through the why behind this. And I know I mentioned this to you because I really love going to events, business type events, because the energy level is really high.
Yeah.
But this last year, right before the shutdowns all happened, I was in Salt Lake, Utah, and went to Silicon Slopes. It's a conference that they have out there. They brought in Mark Zuckerberg and all this. And what was really intriguing is the energy level was just way down. There wasn't a lot of networking. There were no networking opportunities really. and it was just really intriguing because they were all speaking. Like I would consider myself a 1 out of 10 when it comes to tech knowledge, maybe a 2 out of 10.
Okay.
And they were talking so over my head the entire conference. And I would go to these things thinking it was like a business lesson, and it was just tech, really hard to understand. Um, and it seems like you were talking about that's kind of been your entire career, is being in these, around these people, even though your technology is far further than mine, right? But even then, they're trying to talk over your head, and what you called like intellectual bullying. So I kind of want to address that topic a little bit. How do you feel like that is applied, especially in entrepreneurship?
I think it's a general human condition. We want to feel significant, and with highly technical career fields, most people get their significance by being smarter than someone or the smartest person in the room, which is why I wrote, titled the book, the title I titled it. And even with entrepreneurs, like with my own journey, when I first started my business, I thought, I have this all figured out. I'm pretty smart. I don't need anybody's help. But then what I quickly realized was I didn't have it figured out. So I had to like get over myself and start asking other people for help. Because I would join like CEO peer groups and entrepreneur peer groups, and I would sit there and pretend I had it all figured out. Whereas inside, I didn't have it figured out. I was really struggling, and it took me quite a while to get over myself and start asking for help and being vulnerable. And I think it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do because but the reality is none of us have it figured out. Everyone is struggling with something. And when you open up and just ask for help or say where you are, it facilitates connection and facilitates getting where you want to go. It's like you open up the possibility to getting help from other people. So yeah, it's extremely important.
See, I love that. And so I want to ask you this because we're talking about potential and how far you can go. And we
Yeah.
talked about this in the pre-interview, the rule of ones and threes, right? We get stuck at 100,000, 300,000, a million, 3 million in our businesses. How would you help somebody to break those barriers, the ones and three barriers?
To break the 1 in 3 barrier, I recommend you change your strategy or get someone else to help you or look at it. So some of the best things I did when I hit those barriers was get outside help and outside perspective. It is what I tend to do when I get to those barriers is I tend to try to brute force my way through it. And if you try to brute force your way through it, it's going to be extremely frustrating because you're trying things that you got you there, right, to the 1 or the 3, but they're not going to get you beyond that because that's why you're stuck, right? But you keep trying them and trying them and think if I work harder, if I do more of this, or if I do more SEO for my website or whatever, it's going to fix it. But it's not. So you can't solve the problem with the same mindset you have when the problem came to you. So that's why the outside help is very important. And it could even be, going talking to someone else, or even like for me, uh, peer groups are very important. Coaching is very important. I've had a business coach and a life coach for several years now. So hearing the outside perspective and identifying those blind spots or talking to someone that's been through what you're going through is what I recommend because you have to change your strategy. And sometimes you don't know how to change the strategy until you talk to somebody else.
Yeah, and that's what a good point. I mean, we've found that we've almost always had to hire a coach anytime we get stuck.
Mm.
And when we got to one of those first barriers and the plateaus, I remember, like you said, trying to brute force it. I mean, that's just the natural human, especially I feel like as men. I think that's kind of like our initial reaction. It's like I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna go until I figure it out. But the reality is, like you said, it almost takes humbling yourself and saying, "Who can help me with this problem?"
Mm-hmm.
And admitting not even defeat, but admitting you have a weakness that can be fixed by somebody else. So, and I want to ask you this, especially, you've recently been acquired and everything. What do you feel like drove your company to the point that you felt okay selling the business, right? Because you've this thing's become your baby. You've grown it really quickly. You've broken many of those barriers, but selling it off to somebody else or getting acquired is kind of the dream for some people, and for other people, they're like, "Oh man, but it's my baby." How did you guys get to that point to where you felt like it was time to be acquired?
Uh, for me, with my business, I got to a point where we were growing organically. Uh, we didn't have any investors, so to grow organically, we had to increase revenue enough and increase profit enough to hire someone else, and repeat the cycle over and over and over. and it's like a slow, journey up a steep hill, basically. So I was like getting frustrated with that. So I decided I need to either find a private equity investor, someone to to get some capital, an infusion of capital to help hire people and market, or look at an acquisition. So I just happened to have an opportunity land kind of on my footstep through some mutual connections about the company that acquired us, and the culture and their model like aligned perfectly with what I wanted to do. So it seemed like if I just surrendered a little bit, to the universe, it's like I had these messages there, like this is the right thing to do at this time. So rather than like dismissing those messages, I listened to them and went forward with it.
Love that. I absolutely love that. And for you, so it was more of like you said, it was a strategic play to tap into resources and
Mm-hmm.
to scale your company. And what's funny is I've been learning this more and more recently is that that's one of the fastest ways to break a plateau. Because some people
Yeah.
are, like you said, they're trying to brute force it, but it's like, well, could you work with somebody else who maybe is of equal size, bolt on together and say, okay, let's build this together, right? Let's client share and share resources and share office space in some cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool deal that you just did there. So let me ask you this, a couple final questions here for you. So Christian, I first off, where can people get access to your book?
My book is on most common reselling platforms. Like Amazon is the biggest one, obviously. Barnes and Noble. So Amazon's the best place, though.
Love it. Well, so make sure you go check it out. So the book is The Smartest Person in the Room. I almost said in the world, but in the hopefully,
That'll be the sequel.
yeah, that'll be the sequel. Interview billionaires and be like, which one of you thinks you're the smartest one in the world? I think that'd be kind of funny. I think it'd be a funny conversation. There's some free content for you, right? Content ideas. So make sure you go check that out, everybody. And then as well, you're talking about launching an entire program around helping people with this. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Launching a program about my secure methodology, which I cover in the book. Mm-hmm.
Love it. So walk us through kind of like what that program looks like and how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so the program is going to be on the secure methodology. It'll be training, and there'll be several offers. There'll be like a do-it-yourself sort of offer where someone can take the course themselves, a pre-recorded course. There'll be a do with you where it could be a live course, or they take the pre-recorded course with some coaching sessions. And there'll be more of a, not really a do for you sort of offering, but it'll be more access to me privately, working with people to help them and their team get through the secure methodology. So the target audience is really technical leaders, but inevitably, once the technical leader gets trained, they're going to want to help train their team so they're all speaking the same language and improving together. Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So make sure you go check that out. You can check out the book and on all of the platforms, Amazon, for example. And then Christian, one final question for you here today. So, we have covered a lot of different topics here, and I hope people have gotten some real value from, taking the weaknesses, finding people to help you maximize your strengths. But what would you say is your final parting piece of guidance to our audience?
I think it's important to get some help basically, but also we all have weaknesses, and to find somebody that's good at the areas that you're not good at. So with me, I don't like structure. I've done like the DISC assessment. I've done a lot of the behavioral assessments. I don't like structure. I don't like systems. I don't like compliance. I don't like all that stuff. But in order for me to scale my business, I needed those things. I need the systems. I needed the structure. So if I can't do that, because I try to do it, but I hate it. So it's not going to work. So I needed to find somebody that loves that. And that's what I did. And that really helped me scale the business. So to look at, your weakness, and we all think we can overcome our weakness, but behaviorally, motivationally, we often are incapable of doing that. So finding someone else to shore that up is typically, no, that's what I recommend. Yeah.